Welcome to this latest video from DPP Planning. Ahead of this month's UK REiFF in Leeds, I'm joined by DPP CEO Gareth Hooper to discuss one of the key issues that will be on the agenda at the forum, the importance of partnership working between the public and private sectors. So Gareth, this is an area that DPP is already a keen advocate of, particularly when it comes to regeneration and notably the regeneration of towns and cities. That's correct, isn't it?
Yes, you're right. As a business, our vision is about working in a collaborative way with clients in finding ways to overcome the increasing number of challenges that exist in delivering change in towns and cities. So as a result, representatives from all our offices will be present at UK REiFF this month. I'm looking to have discussions about transformational investment in towns and cities.
So towns and cities obviously having quite an evolution, particularly following the pandemic, changing in the obviously retail shopping habits, online, all that sort of stuff. So let's bring this together with how public-private partnerships are helping to change the face of these locations, or can help change the face of them.
Yeah, I think we've certainly seen a huge growth in public sector partnership working in regeneration over the past 12 months. Certainly repositioning of towns and city centres is a critical element of that. The pandemic has hastened the decline of the retail market and forced the public sector to act to plug rapidly emerging black holes in towns and cities. In major towns and cities, that gap can be plugged by build to rent and student accommodation, but in less central locations, it's requirement of the public sector to step in and plug gaps where the commercial market isn't there to fill it. So we've seen some really interesting examples of local authorities and other public sector bodies stepping in to look at how they can fill those voids.
And these public sector organisations are keen to work with the private sector and vice versa?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always been a nervousness around public sector partnership working in terms of legacies around PFI schemes. But I think the public sector have grown to realise that the private sector can add a lot of value, be that financial funding, but also development expertise. So we're seeing a lot more trust being shown by both parties to unlock a number of the challenges that there are in bringing forward major regeneration in our towns and cities.
Why would these opportunities be attractive to both parties? What does repositioning of a town or a city centre to mean? How does that breathe new life into a town city?
Yeah, I think we're all experiencing a huge change in our towns and cities that have been anchored by retail schemes. Without the retailers, without people in offices, 5 days a week, we've got to find other ways of plugging that gap. That's a major economic issue for local authorities, but it's also for landlords, for landowners. They've got to find another way of filling their property. It's critical for both elements that the city centres don't die. And actually, in many ways, it presents real opportunity for other land uses to come forward. To look at how true mixed-use development can take place in city centres and actually breathe life back into city centres, and it becoming less reliant on retail, less reliant on offices, and look at a true form of development that actually, if done properly, can actually generate a good return for landowners, but also breathe life back into centres, as well as bringing the public sector into the heart of many of these schemes.
So you talked about those mixed-use developments and the other options apart from purpose-built student accommodation, build-to-rent. They might be obvious anchors, but there are other options too, aren't there, in terms of education maybe or health that could plug those gaps too?
Definitely. I think the uses you've outlined, education and health, are examples where previously the high rents that would have been charged and would be payable by retail occupiers precluded some of those uses. The change in occupier interest in towns and cities means that some of the uses that previously would have not even thought about going to city centres are now interested in going there. Landowners, developers are interested in them coming on board on the basis that they can fill voids, but also, as I said, increase footfall. we're seeing huge numbers of clients interested in exploring health opportunities. We're working on NHS schemes at looking at diagnostic centres going into former department stores, which from their perspective fills a void, but from the NHS's perspective creates an accessible location, and health becomes part of everyday life for people. It's not just a bolt-on that you have to travel out of a city centre to get to. We're also seeing local authorities stepping in to purchase sites. We've seen examples in Torbay and in Swansea of councils stepping in and actually buying former Debenhams department stores to create community hubs. So you're right, there's a whole raft of uses that previously would not have been in a city centre that now are. What's really exciting from our perspective is working with clients, particularly universities and education establishments, in what it means for them to be able to locate in the heart of a city and actually make their campus more attractive for students because it's in the heart of everything that's going on, and what that means for a town and a city of actually increasing footfall, which drives people, drives vitality and viability, when previously it would have been solely relied on a retail market.
And these locations already have quite a lot of infrastructure because they've tried to get people in before to use them as shopping locations and office locations, but also with services like education and healthcare, it makes them prime locations to create housing as well. So does the regeneration of towns and cities contribute to that challenge of avoiding greenfield developments?
Yeah, definitely. I think the instant change that we've seen in towns and cities over the last few years has been the immediate conversion in prime locations of sites for built to rents, so privately rented apartment schemes. The purpose-built student accommodation market has been thriving over the last couple of years, and the emergence of the co-living sector equally has been adding to the number of people living in our towns and cities. So that certainly has been driving a rapid change from the previous retail and office dynamic in cities to a city that lives 24/7. Now that works in prime locations where there are those markets that exist, where you step into secondary locations that don't have the need for purpose-built student accommodation, or the build-to-rent market doesn't quite work in those locations. You are looking at private housing schemes, or what we've seen particularly in the past 12 months is the growth of affordable housing clients as anchors in these locations. Again, taking advantage of the drop in values in these kind of locations to actually be able to locate in the centre of towns and cities where the need is the highest and create a new community in those central locations.
You highlighted a couple of examples. Are there other examples of where DPP has played a part in regeneration of towns and cities that are worth mentioning?
Yeah, we've worked on a huge number of schemes, repositioning Debenhams stores up and down the country for landowners, on shopping centre sites. Some of the more interesting projects we're working on at the minute are looking at alternative uses. So the Centre for Ageing and Vitality in Newcastle is a fascinating project, looking to bring together university health care providers to create a health innovation neighbourhood, linking world-class health and ageing research in a vibrant mixed-use community. It brings together research, it brings together people, and really puts health at the forefront of everything. Health in a non-traditional sense of not just about healthcare, but bringing health and well-being into the community in which it's designed. Other projects that we've worked on in terms of land uses, looking to drive and create step chains, things like Culture House in Sunderland, leisure centres throughout the UK. These are all facilities that are going beyond their initial use. They're looking at multi-uses, bringing together multi-disciplines from the public sector, from the private sector. Again, what's really interesting is the combination of the public sector working with private sector finance, again, using the expertise that they may have as a developer to bring together public sector organisations to deliver a scheme, partly funded through the private sector, but actually looking at how that can deliver maximum opportunities for regeneration. critically, we're really seeing central government funding, new towns fund, but also particularly Homes England's funding in terms of infrastructure funding, both in terms of unlocking sites, but also then what that means for social landlords in terms of bringing forward regeneration of sites, but also the positive benefit of 60% of those schemes being affordable housing in key central locations.
Okay, so obviously UK REiFF will be attracting key decision makers from across the sector that will be discussing all of this. You mentioned your team are going to be there, but how else is DPP playing a part in these conversations? What else are you doing at the event?
Yeah, we, having attended last year's event, we found it a great opportunity to meet with the public and the private sector to talk about opportunities for collaborative working. Certainly over the past 12 months, we've witnessed far greater levels of collaboration between the public and the private sector about finding ways to unlock sites. Planning sometimes is seen as a barrier to a lot of these schemes coming forward, but we'd like to think with proper planning and a proper collaboration, we can help facilitate schemes coming forward and sites being unlocked. This year, we're attending the event. We are hosting our own event, which is actually bringing together clients from councils, universities, housing associations, funders and developers to have a collaborative discussion about how they can work together to unlock sites. And our part in being there is about bringing them together, bringing together the problems that we see on both parties, but also bringing them to see the opportunities that by working together, they can actually unlock some of the problems.
Excellent, Gareth. Thanks very much for that. And if you want to meet and engage with any of the DPP team at UK REiFF, just look at the LinkedIn post that this video is connected to, or any of the LinkedIn posts that DPP will be putting out in the run-up to UK REiFF.